Okay, hello everyone. Thank you again for dialing in and joining me today. It's so lovely to see so many of your lovely faces and so many of your other little black squares that I can't see your faces. It's still lovely to see you dialing in. So thank you so much for being here. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Becky. I run Ivy's Corner, which is just a little corner of the internet where I indulge myself in lots of tangling fun, basically, and would love to share what I do and the Zentangle method with people from all over the world, much like yourselves. So I'm really pleased to have so many of you dialing in with me today. For those of you who are completely new to Zentangle, I know that last week we had several people who had never done any Zentangle before, which was amazing. I was really hoping that we would have a real range of people kind of joining in with, having different ranges of abilities and like lengths of time that people have been tangling. So for those of you who are completely new to the Zentangle method, I am going to go through kind of the basic kind of 8-step method that we use in the Zentangle method. And we are going to be doing quite a lot of different tangles today. I've thrown quite a lot this one. I was deciding what we were going to do, and I was like, oh, let's put that in, and let's put that in as well. So what I will say is that if you, and many of you will know this if you practice Zentangle already, my suggestion is just that, it's a suggestion. So I don't expect everyone to follow everything I do exactly, because where would the fun be in that, I would love it very much to see everyone taking this their own way, doing their own thing with what I sort of propose in this tile. And so please do share with me. If you don't want to share at the end of the session, then that's absolutely fine. Please do tag me on social media or pop me an email with what you've done, because I would love to see it. So I'm going to hopefully not have a coughing fit like I did last week. I have got some water in my very snazzy Zentangle bottle. So I'm going to hydrate throughout, and hopefully we will be okay, but I can already hear it starting to go, so that's not a good sign. Never mind. Let's just flip you over to my other camera setup and hopefully you'll be able to see my desk. So I have in front of me, as I mentioned in the email, I have a Zentangle tile. This is a standard Zentangle tile. I'm going to be tangling with a Micron PN today. I've got a Zentangle pencil and a tortillon. So all of the basic supplies that you would need if you are just dipping your toe in the world of Zentangle, this is what you will need. Basically, this is all you need to create some beautiful artwork. So this tile is obviously there's an official Zentangle tile, but if you are doing this in a sketchbook or any other tile size or scrap of paper or anything, that's absolutely fine. Obviously recommend that you use something that's a nice, decent weight and has got a bit of a kind of a tooth to it of the paper. This is a 100% cotton Zentangle tile. So if you have something like a mixed media watercolor paper type thing, that would be perfect. Black fine liner Micron is sort of the gold standard when it comes to Zentangle. Just a regular pencil and a blending stick or something that you can use to smudge your graphite to create some lovely gradients of shade. So let's get cracking. I'm going to have another sip of water because otherwise I am going to lose my voice. My son woke me up at 4:30 this morning AM, so I'm still going from that. I don't think I'm going to fall asleep on you, but I apologise if that's probably why my voice is sounding a bit croaky. So the first step of the Zentangle method, for those of you who are not familiar, is gratitude and appreciation. So with the Zentangle method, obviously it's very much focused around art being kind of a gateway to the well-being of our mental health and other aspects of our life. And so I always like to take a moment at the beginning of my Zentangle practice to adjust the way that I'm sitting and get comfortable in my chair. Thank you. Sorry, someone, yes, just saying here, what size is this square? It's 3.5 inch squared. Someone's on top of it and answering questions for me, so thank you very much, Lisa. So yes, the first step of the Zentangle method is gratitude and appreciation, and I think it's just a really nice thing to do at any kind of, even not doing Zentangle, just to spend a few moments each day to think of something, even something small, that we're grateful for, and that's, you know, been proven to benefit everyone's mental health. So we can just take a nice stretch and sort of sit comfortably in our chair with our feet on the floor and a nice straight back, so that we're feeling relaxed, comfortable in the way that we're sitting, and we can just take a few deep breaths. And whilst we do that, just think of something today that you're grateful for. So as last week, I'm extremely grateful that all of you are dialing in. 32 of you, that's amazing. I'm so grateful that you are all here with me live. It's kind of mind-blowing, actually. And even more people I know who have signed up for the recording and can't join in person. So thank you. I'm just so grateful for your kind of for you being here and for your participation and trusting me to giving me some time of your precious day. And we can just take a few more deep breaths and relax our shoulders, maybe flex our fingers, and just get ready to do some lovely tangling. So last week we did do the dots and a border, the next 2 steps of the Zentangle method. And I think I said at the time that we don't always do these steps. These kind of help us to define a little bit of space. Even a small tile can feel overwhelming sometimes. And so the first 2 steps of the Zentangle method, the corner dots and the border, are there to kind of make the tile, the white space, feel a little bit less scary, and to just kind of give us, you know, something to start with. Having said that, we're not going to do that today. I'm going to kind of do a half a border that also forms my string. So step 4 of the Zentangle method is to draw a string, which is a lightly drawn pencil line on our tile, which will, again, define the space, give us something to kind of launch ourselves off of, if you will. And that is kind of what we're going to be doing today. So I'm going to move this to one side for now, and we will get straight into our string / border. So I am just going to make sure no one's saying anything in the comments. That's fine. So what I'm going to do for my string, and if for those of you who are not familiar with Zentangle, your tile can be any which way up. It's a square, so it's the same in every direction. So any which way up you like. We're going to start off by drawing. I'm going to just do like this 2 corners of the border here, but I'm going to just make them a little bit sort of not straight, a little bit curved in. And this is just a very loose guideline for what I'm going to be doing today. I pressed a little harder than perhaps I normally would, so so that you can kind of see on the camera, but a very lightly drawn line is going to give you that structure just to start off with. And then we're going to move on to tangling. So now step number 5 of the Zentangle method is to place our tangles on the tile. Now tangles are just patterns. There's hundreds and thousands of them, and I've picked a little selection for you today. So last week we did something completely random. If you were here last week, we used the L5 from Project Pack 10, my version of Project Pack 10, and we created something completely random. I didn't even know what it was going to be, and I think it turned out pretty well. But I have defined a little bit more about what we're going to do today. I actually have put some work in today, so you'll be pleased to hear. And I thought I would do something completely different that was a little bit more organic focused. Now, I'm not generally the sort of tangler that enjoys doing loads of organic stuff, so I thought, why not challenge myself and do something a little bit different? So we're going to be doing something, we're going to be growing a little tangly garden on this tile today. But I thought I would start off with one of my favourite tangles, because it's, you know, it's my free lesson and I can put my favourite tangles in there, I suppose. So what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to do the tangle Festune. Now, I drew this a while back and then I fell in love with it again recently when I did Project Pack 27, because I added it in. For those of you that did Project Pack 27, the final lesson where Maria did those Pangea fragments, I placed it in those and I just decided how much I liked it again. So if you check out my Instagram and my blog, you can see that my approach to that project pack. But I'm going to do some kind of nice, I'm going to call them Festune pebbles in the corner, where my 2 lines and my border meet. And I always think things look nice in 3s. So I'm going to do 3 kind of large orb shapes in the corner of my tile. And then I'm going to do my Festune's only going to have a little dot in the middle. So it's just going to have a nice inky dot in the center. I might zoom in actually, because I feel like I'm quite far away from you. If I go off camera, then someone wave. And so what I'm now going to do is I'm going to take off from my inky dot in the center of my festoon, and I'm going to hook this line around the edge of my orb. And then I'm going to come back again and just widen that end there. So we're hooking over the edge of the line and we're kind of coming back in to add a little bit more weight. And it's going to look as if these bands that we're adding are kind of over, like hooking around the edge of our space here. So I'm just going to take my time and place these all around. I'm afraid for those of you who are new that I'm not kind of focusing on the doctrine of, doctrine as it, but like this standard sort of beginner tangles and things. I'm kind of just hoping that you come along with me on a little tangling adventure. So if you've never done anything related to Zentangle before, then this is quite different to the beginners class that you would normally take. And I would recommend that you kind of do that at some point. It's not a prerequisite by any means, but it will help you to understand a lot of the terminology that I'll be using. And I will try to explain myself if I'm using tangle terms that you might not know. But as I said, please do ask in the comments if you would like to know what I'm talking about and you don't immediately know. So I'm just having these nice inky lines at the top here. And I'm going all the way around my orb type shape. And we say orb in Zentangle because a circle implies perfection. I freehand most, or if not all of my stuff, and I can never draw a perfect circle if you paid me. So orbs it is. I'm going to do the same on my other orbs. So just taking my time and actually just enjoying the time that we have to sit and draw, because there's no rush with any of this. I'm a reasonably fast tangler. I'm trying to go a little bit slower for the recording and for the lesson in the video, and I am rabbiting away at you incessantly. If I was tangling by myself, I think I'd probably be a lot faster. But there is no kind of right way to tangle. There's no way you can do this wrong because it's just patterns, and your pattern might look a little bit different to my pattern, but that's fine. It's just a pattern. So take your time and just enjoy the sensation of the pen on the paper and watching that ink flow. I will say that I would recommend tangling reasonably big. If you are new to Zentangle, it's very easy to tangle tiny because it's a small square, and you can feel like, oh no, I don't know what's coming next, especially in a lesson like this. You can kind of get a sense of what I have planned based on how much space I'm leaving, so try and kind of bear that in mind, but try not to tangle too tiny. But I mean, I guess try not to tangle too big either, which is not hugely helpful. But I always think, and I always encourage people, especially those who are new, not to tangle too tiny, because when you tangle in a very small, it makes it harder for you to kind of experience shading those different patterns. And the shading is key to Zentangle. It's a key part of what kind of makes it so fun. And I think if you tangle really small, it's harder to get the detail in the shading and the full effect of how your tile can look at the end. So I'm just doing my third one here. I'm taking my time. I really like this one. I think hooking these little lines around the edge really help to make it look 3D, especially once we shade. I feel like this is Pepper is a very similar tangle, and possibly Festune isn't meant to have the hooky bands over, so perhaps this is a variation between Festune and Pepper. But let's call it Festune because I've already written it on the back of the tile. So we've drawn this in here now, and I mentioned that we were going to do something a bit organic, and actually I suppose this doesn't my screen's about to turn itself off. This doesn't look super organic, but we're going to start to kind of grow some things in this little garden now. And one of my favorite tangles to grow is Pokeroot. So for those of you who don't know Pokeroot, it is named after the little berries in the founders of Zentangle's garden, Rick and Maria's garden. And it looks like this. So I'm going to grow a little bundle of Pokeroot and also some Pokeleaf. So I'm going to show you both variations of the same tangle around this kind of layer here, out of my little pebbles at the bottom. So Pokeroot looks like this. So we're going to do a small line like this, little curve, and then we're going to aura that curve. Now, an aura is just drawing a line alongside another line or a shape that exists, if you're not familiar with that terminology. So I'm going to aura this line, and quite narrow, to give me a little stem. And then I'm going to draw a little C curve or an upside down smiley face. And I like how everyone always says an upside down smiley face rather than a frown. And then we're going to draw another orb around the outside of this, but we're going to start and stop where we drew this stem. So rather than drawing across this line, and generally in Zentangle, we don't cross over any spaces that we've defined, with some exceptions. We're going to start here, and it's called hollyboring. We're drawing behind. So we're going to draw this berry orb here and stop back at there. So we've got this little, a lot of people say it looks like a cherry or a mushroom. And so that is your Pokeroot. Now, Pokeleaf is very similar. I'm going to grow one out of here. So start with that same auraed little stem and my upside down smiley. And then instead of coming round in an orb, we're going to begin to come round, but then come to a point and then come back, just as we did in the Pokeroot. So it's like a little leaf shape. And I'm just going to grow these out here. And I'm not going to come too far out. I'm probably still staying within this half of the tile, certainly not going past the half. I would say maybe stay a sort of centimetre or so away from the halfway point, because we've got plenty more stuff that we want to add. And so you can draw your little berries and leaves in kind of any way that you like. And you'll see here that I've hollybored or drawn behind this leaf shape here. So I've drawn up to the line, picked my pen up and imagined where that would go, and then continued to draw around the other side. And you can do all of one type if you prefer one over the other, or you can do a mixture. Or if you are familiar with Zentangle and you have another favourite similar tangle, then throw that in there as well, by all means. I like this one because it fills space really beautifully. It really, you can squash them in anywhere. I'm going to do a little bit more around here. And you can kind of see that I am sort of ignoring this borderline now, actually. So it's just there because I felt like drawing a string, but we're not really adhering to it. I mean, you can if you wish. So I've got some little border around my Festune berries, Festune pebbles, and I'm gonna just maybe do a couple of little ones here. After telling you to tangle not too tiny. I'm happy with that, I think. We might add some more of these a little bit later. Let me have a swig of water while there's still some heads down. Okay. So the next tangle, I've write down Pokeroot. I didn't write that down before. In case anyone wants to make a note of what tangles we're using. The next one we're going to do is called Toodles. And this is one I haven't actually drawn loads before, but I've just sort of recently rediscovered it. So I thought we would throw that in there. And now to draw Toodles, it's not dissimilar, I suppose, to some of these other ones that we've drawn. But what we're going to do is we're going to make our stem a little bit longer and pointy. We're going to draw our stem in this way. And then once we've done that, I'm going to take off and land. So taking off and landing, well, not landing actually, I'm just taking off, but I'm going to take off. So start drawing again along this line here, taking off, and then coming round into a little sort of, not an orb, but a little kind of very small petal shape on the end. And you can ink that in if you want to. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and they don't have to match perfectly. So we've kind of got this little stem with two little sort of seeds growing off the side. And I'm going to take off again from the top this time. So taking off from the top here at the top of the stem. And I'm going to kind of, you can draw this in the air first and watch me first if you're not familiar with this tangle, but we're going to come down kind of at a similar angle to this stem and then flare out and aura widely around this one that we've just drawn here. So we're going to come down here and then come round and then come back in this section. So we're kind of creating this curvy little leaf shape like so. And I'm drawing this a little bit bigger than these Pokeroot now. We're going to start growing things a little bigger. I wanted to do things in layers. So we started at the bottom here. We've added these little Pokeroot in behind, and then we're starting to grow some stuff out from the center. So I'm going to maybe do a few. We'll see how I feel. I'm going to do one here. And they can be varying sizes. They don't have to all be the same. And at this point, I would say I'm kind of approaching the halfway mark on my tile. And I'm going to take off from that top, come round, and I'm going to holly bore this one underneath my Pokeleaf and then tuck it in here. And this one's going to holly bore underneath here. Again, holly bore is just the term. It's a tangle in its own right, but it's a term we use in Zentangle for drawing behind something that's already on the tile. And that helps to create layering and depth and all sorts of fun stuff. I'm going to do a few more, maybe two more. This one's going to come down here. Oops, I'm going that way first. Let's not forget that step. And this section here is completely hollow boring underneath, but you can kind of just put a few lines and dots, you know, as an idea of that pattern. So there's my third one, and let's do one more here. If you feel like you want to add another, then please do. I know it's hard when you don't know what's coming next, but you can always decide that you prefer not to do other things that I suggest and come back to ones that you like the feel of better. So there is a bit of space over here that feels like it might want one, but I think I've got other things I want to do now, so I'm gonna leave that as it is. A few heads still down, so maybe it's time for another drink of water before my throat dries out completely. I've done this a few times, this tile, just to sort of practice, and it looks completely different every time I've done it, so we'll see what comes out of this one. Now the next one I feel like is in the UK we would call it a Marmite tangle. And some people are probably like nodding along if they're from the UK. A Marmite tangle, the Marmite is kind of like, what's the American or not in the UK version of it? It's like I don't know. It's basically something either you love it or you hate it, we say. And I think a lot of people like Vegemite. There you go, thank you. That's the one. So if you either like this one or you don't really, and I didn't used to like it, but then I decided that I did. So we'll see. This one's Mooka. This is kind of another Zentangle classic. And I like Mooka because we've got lots of stuff all bunched down in this corner now. So I want to start growing stuff out a little bit more, that we can start adding some more things behind it and kind of create these interesting layers and things. So I'm going to draw Mooka. And to draw Mooka, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a couple over here But I'm going to start doing a big one over in the center part here so that you can kind of see a bit bigger. Now Mooka is quite a bold tangle. I would recommend kind of going reasonably big with it, and I'm going to fill a lot of this space with it. It's quite flowy, so you could always have a practice on it. If you're not familiar with it, have a practice on another piece of paper first. I'm going to come out from here and float my Mooka around like this. So it starts with a line and then a big kind of orb that almost comes to meet itself at the end here, but then comes back on itself, and then you aura your stem. So you've got this lovely kind of bulb on the end here. And then I'm going to do another one, but coming out away from this first one, so coming in the opposite direction. So I'm going to come up this line of the stem again, and then come round here, and then back down.
What was this one called again?
Mooka. I should have written it down, shouldn't I? Mooka.
Sorry, I did this one today and could not find what the name of it was.
Well, there you go. It's meant to be.
Exactly.
There it is, Mooka. So this is a really, if you follow a lot of the Zentangle HQ videos, this is one that you'll see coming up time and again. It's a kind of a classic. I think it's Maria, one of the founders' favorite, so she often will draw it. So I'm basically pairing them pretty much in twos, as you do when you pair things. But I'm going to do another one on this side and another pair on this side, and I might just add a couple of cheeky other ones in there somewhere, but we'll see. So I'm going to roughly follow my string line. Actually, I knew it was going to be useful. So we're going to follow here and do another one on this side, and just take your time with this. I think is the key with Mooka. And then grow this one up here and around, and auraing that all the way down. And you'll notice that my aura lines I'm kind of keeping roughly the same. So there's a couple of Mookas there, and then I'm going to do one more on sort of this side here. But I'm not really worrying about things being symmetrical or particularly even. I enjoy tangles when they are a bit all over the place, to be honest. This one's going to come up here. So I'd say the middle ones I've got here are larger, and these other ones on the side are a bit smaller. I feel like that looks too symmetrical for me, to be honest. So I think I might just throw an extra one in here because I can. A smaller one. There we go. So you can, I mean, don't go crazy because we're adding some more interesting bits in a second, but that's where my Mooka are going to be sitting for the moment. And we haven't got a lot of like ink. I think with the organic tangles is often you don't get necessarily too much drama going on in terms of inkiness and like boldness. So I thought we would add a little bit in there because that's fun to do to balance things out a little bit. There's a bit of inkiness going on here, so I thought adding a little bit up here would be fun. So what I thought we would add was Henna Drum. If you are familiar with Zentangle, this is a little bit like Crescent Moon, but a bit of a sort of a flowery version of Crescent Moon. And I'm going to pop that in between these Mookas here. So to draw this one, I'll start on the big one again so you can see. I'm going to create a little semicircle in between these V shapes that my Mooka fronds have created. And I'm going to cap it off with a little semicircle like that. And then I'm going to aura that. So I'm going to add an aura line. I suppose it's a little bit wider than my Mooka stems, but you could try and keep it sort of similar distance for continuity if you want. And then once I've done that, I'm going to ink in this sort of semicircular wedge shape. It's not semicircular at all, is it? It's a wedge. And just spend a little bit of time filling that in with some ink. Like so. And then once we've done that, we're going to add some little petals on the outside. And they're going to have little rough edges, so they're not quite as kind of perfect, if that's the right term. I mean, it's not the right term, nothing's perfect in Zentangle, but it's quite rough in the edge. And so we're going to come up here and do a little sort of zigzag line and then back down. And then just do that again, come up from what we've just drawn and come back down until you fit a few in there. Kind of reminds me of a sunflower. And then I'm going to just use my pen to add a little bit of texture to these petal shapes. So I'm going to place my pen on this line here, this sort of aura line that I drew. Maybe I need to zoom in a little bit more. I mean, I'm tiny because I'm looking at the corner where I'm spotlit, so I can still see everyone. Hopefully you can see it okay. It's not too small, I suppose. Let me just zoom in a bit more. I'm going to touch my pen down onto this line here and then flick it up within this space. So pick my pen up like so, and we've just added a little bit of texture, which looks really nice on that little petal there. So just a few of those little flicks are going to just create a little bit more depth. And so now what I'm going to do is just do the same to all of the little V shapes I have here that I've created with my Mooka. So I'm going to do one here, and then I'm going to do a little cheeky extra one in here for that little bonus Mooka that is decided to pop out. So you can take your time doing this. I just I drew my first wedge shape here and then decided it was a bit too big for this Mooka. So I've just forward inside that line rather than outside. So that's always something you can do to just adjust what you've done. And then just take your time filling that in. And hopefully everyone's following along and I'm not going too fast. No one's looking panicked, so hopefully we're okay. But yeah, I'm just it's so lovely to have everybody here and tangling along with me. I often think this about Zentangle is that it's just amazing. The community when in the Zentangle method is fabulous, and everyone is so supportive, and it's just really lovely to see people from all over the world coming together and doing something that's kind of, you know, very, you know, we might be far apart geographically, but it's just something lovely about coming together to do the same thing and follow along the same lessons. And I certainly feel very inspired when I'm teaching classes or taking part in classes with people from everywhere around the world. I find it amazing to see what other people do. Boston, Massachusetts, hello. I love Boston. I was in Boston not long ago, well, very flying visit for Zen again back in April. And I visited it when my daughter was just 1 and she's 7.5 now. So so it was a long time ago that I was there, and I wouldn't say I got to see it that much of it because we were taking a 1-year-old back to go to bed early. So I'd like to go again. But yeah, it's just amazing how Zentangle has no borders and everybody kind of speaks the same Zentangle language, as it were. As I mentioned before, if once we've done and finished with this tile, I would absolutely love to make a big mosaic of everyone's work. So it would be fabulous if you could tag me in your work. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, I am at ivies_corner_arts. And then on various, pretty much some variety of that on all the other channels as well. So you can find me and follow me on there, and that would be lovely. Love to see what you create, because yeah, the mosaic is another of my favorite parts about Zentangle, is putting everyone's work together and everyone can have a little look and see how other people interpreted the same lesson. So I'm going to just give everyone a little bit longer to do their Henna Drum. It looks like people are good, so maybe we will carry on. I debated a lot about what I was going to put in next, and I decided to go tangle shopping and had a little look on Pinterest and various other places to see what I could find that I thought would go nicely in here, because it's very easy to always just draw the same ones that you've always done. And so I thought I would do something a little bit different and pick out some tangles that were new to me, or that I had seen but not had a chance to draw really, or have drawn much. So I thought what we would do is a tangle called, this is quite a long name, this one is called Zen-splosion Folds Ribbon Curves. So it is by Daniele O'Brien, and I don't know where Danielle is from, but it's a lovely tangle, and it's quite an old tangle. I think it was the blog I saw that where she'd written about it. I think it said 2011 or something, so it's quite an old one. Zen-splosion folds, and yeah, the variety we're doing is, because there's a couple of different versions of it, is ribbon curves. And this is Danielle O'Brien, who deconstructed this tangle. Often I will do, the other ones here are all what we call HQ tangles. So they are ones that have been stepped out by Zentangle HQ. And yeah, that they're kind of not their tangles, you know, they're just ones that they have stepped out. And they often will use, well, they pretty much only use the HQ tangles in their project pack lessons and other things like that. So obviously there are many thousands of tangles stepped out by people all over the world, and so I thought, yeah, we'd do something that wasn't just an HQ tangle. So Zen-splosion folds, if you're not familiar with it, is we're going to start off with some nice big S curve, a nice big S, like kind of ongoing S curve. I might put a couple in here. There's something else I want to add as well, so I don't want to take up too much space. But I'm going to start off here, and I'm going to do a nice wandering S curve, back and forth like this. So filling this little gap I've got here, and then I might end in a little, coming back on itself, a little curve like that. It's got this nice big wide curving line. And then once we've done that, we're going to just turn our attention to the kind of these kind of bulbous parts. I was going to say the points, but they're not pointed, so but you know what I mean, these sections here. And we're going to do a line that kind of takes off from that but comes down and tucks in, and it's going to disappear in behind all this lovely foliage that we've grown here. So I'm going to tuck this in like that. It's probably not the best one to show you, this first one, but you can sort of see here how it's going to work. On this side, I'm going to come off of this part, this big curved section, and then come down like this. And then this one is going to come down here. This one down here. And you can kind of get a sense of what this is creating here. This one's going to come down here. And I love this because I just think it looks really cool, but it's really, really simple. Looks really fun. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm also now going to just add a few little lines for some texture. So I'm going to do it on a larger section first, but let me just talk you through my thought process here. I've done this little curve at the top here. So this little, you see this little section here where my pen is pointing? That is kind of, facing me. That's like a bit of a ribbon that's facing me. And I'm going to add some texture to all of this, the ones on the same side, if you will. So if you imagine these lines coming here, I'm going to be adding some texture on these sections. And the reason I'm saying this is because I did this earlier, and if you do it on the other side, I just find it's harder to add the texture to look nice in this central section if you've curved around at the top. If you haven't curved around at the top, then it doesn't really make much difference. but I'm going to add my texture lines here. And to do that, I'm going to start on this large section so you can see a bit easier. I'm going to draw a line that's kind of parallel or auraing this line here, but I'm going to kind of lift my pen a bit so it's kind of not a full thick line. I'm kind of using the pressure of my pen to create texture. So I'm sort of really tickling the paper with my pen, I'm going to say, like so. And it's just giving you that kind of depth, or it gives you some texture without the depth, I suppose. In a similar way to we used our pen to create texture on these henna drums here, it's just adding a little bit of something to the this ribbon. And so I'm now going to carry on, but I'm going to not do all of them, because what I want to kind of alternate them. So it's almost as if this is a ribbon, and one side of this ribbon has got this texture on it. Because if you were to add it to all of these sections, I think you would lose the kind of the sense of it winding back and forth. So I'm going to alternate these shapes here. So this is the next one I'll be doing. And if you want to, you can sort of pick your pen up and do a couple of almost dots, really, just to kind of create that texture. This little space up here is going to have one like that, just an idea of it, and then this bottom section here. And I'm going to go right down here into this space behind my Toodles and my Pokeleaf. I'm going to do another one in this space, but again, I want to retain a little bit of white space because we are going to do another couple of little things, and I feel I'm running out of space. This is quite a packed tile with lots of tangles. So I'm going to do another little one in this gap here. And actually what I might do is hollybore it slightly beneath this Mooka and Henna Drum. If you don't feel confident in doing that, then don't. Just put it somewhere else. But I'm going to hollybore mine. So I'm going to come out from here with my S-curve ribbon and then stop when I get to here, and then imagine it tucks behind. And then maybe it comes up like that at the top. So the end of it's disappearing behind that Mooka. We're just kind of creating these layers and depth to this tile. And then I'm going to do my little lines that come off. This one I'm going to say it would hollybore under here. But, you know, there's a lot going on here. So if you don't see where the end of it disappears, it really doesn't matter. And then this line would maybe come in here. This one is sort of hidden. And I'm just gonna this one I'm gonna sort of guess where that curved line would be. And then this one there. So we've got this kind of ribbon ripple effect. In fact, that's exactly what ribbon curves, ribbon ripple. And I'm gonna now I'm not so fussed about being particular about which side this is on because this is all hidden. So I'm going to just do my lines there and then alternate these shapes here. Just adding that little bit of texture. Hope everyone's doing okay. Does anyone have any questions about this one? Again, no one's looking panicked, so hopefully we're okay. Gosh, 33 of you, that's amazing. Do this little other section here. I do like how this kind of creates this ribbon effect. It's, like I said, very simple but very effective. So hopefully everyone's happy with that one. I'll quickly move on to the next one because I think the thing with this particular tile is that you can always, if you know all the tangles, you can keep going and adding as you kind of in your own time, or if you don't want to follow along at this pace, you can always watch the recording and kind of rewind and redo bits. I wanted to do another new one, or new to me at least. And this one is called, I'm running out of space on the back of my tile now. This one is called El Prado. And this one is by Maria Tovar from Spain. I met Maria again at Zen again. She's lovely. And I saw this one and I liked it. And then when I realized it was by her, I thought, oh, let's do that. So this actually starts in a really similar way to the one that we've just done, with another ongoing kind of S curve. And we are going to do it, it's a little bit looser. This one was very kind of back and forth on itself, whereas this is going to be an S curve wiggly line, but it's going to be a bit wider. So we're going to do a much more subtle kind of curve here. And I'm going to take this up here. So there's our S curve. And similarly to the last tangle, we are going to come off of the end of the kind of furthest points of this wiggly line, but we're going to come up instead of coming down like we did with the other one. So similar kind of structure to start with, but it just goes to show how many different things you can do with a wiggly line in Zentangle. We're going to come off of these points, so take off again, and we're going to just do a little fescue shape. Fescue is another tangle, or a little orb on the end if you want to. And we're going to do 2 of those. And I liked this one because it felt a little bit, it's quite light and airy. It feels kind of fresh and like it's not too heavy. And it was going to sit quite nicely amongst some of these other more loud, bold tangles. We're packing this in. Whenever I plan lessons, I always wonder, I don't know how, how it's going to go in terms of the time it's going to take. I've just done one at the top there. I think this is a really cute little tangle. I like this one. And I'm going to just pop a couple in a couple of different spots. Like I might do another one in here that comes up, maybe one more here. There was one other tangle that I want to show you, one final one that I was going to add. There's a lot on here already, obviously, so you don't have to add it, but I have a soft spot for this tangle, so I thought I would put it in. And the other one I was going to show you is Zinger, so that's another HQ one. So you can, if you're running out of space, then that's completely fine. You don't want to put it in, that's completely fine. I'm going to add it in. I'll quickly show you what it looks like, so if you're not familiar, you can decide whether you want to add it. I'm going to put Zinger over here, and I'm going to do, my Zinger is simply a line like so, with a little dot on the end. And then I'm going to just aura that dot like this. And then I'm going to aura that line, but slightly larger. And then aura that a similar size. And then continue to aura these lines. And then eventually I'll start to get a little bit smaller. And then a couple of little dots. That's just another nice little plant type tangle that I thought I like, so I thought I'd pop it in. But this is quite full, so I appreciate it if you prefer not to. I'm going to do Maria's tangle again, El Prado, and I'm going to do one up this way. And I've kind of drawn it around there, but I'm holly boring at this point. Like so. And then this one, I'm going to imagine this curve is tucked in here, but it's got its little fronds that are coming off. And maybe it's got some fronds coming down here as well. If you find that you have space, she says, what you might like to do is just add a couple more little Pokeroot and things. I was going to do that and then I forgot, so I could have maybe put some, maybe I'll put one growing up here next to this Toodles, but just to kind of tie things together. And obviously now we're drawing behind, so it's kind of, these ones are all in front, and it might be that you like to add some more that are a little bit more behind everything else, elsewhere on the tile. if you are not a fan of a busy tile and would prefer not to add that, then that's fine. What you can do, I find, with some of these is that because if you've got a tangle where it does have a single line like this Zinger, I just drew over that line there, because it's just a single line, it doesn't matter if you draw over it because it could be behind. So I've gone against my own rule there and said that we don't draw over things. I got distracted and stopped doing this one. Oh, Tracy, yes, the recording of last week are, don't worry. I'm glad that you found me today. That's positive. But yes, email me if you reply to the email with this link just to say, hello, it was me that would like the recording, please. Then I will send it to you and you can have a little tangle along with that one. And then as I well, had one last week, the live another free live lesson, and then we have one more next week. And actually at the end of next week's lesson, I'm going to be opening the doors to my membership. So it's going to be a fortnightly live lesson at this time. It seems to work for a lot of people, so hopefully it works for you. If you would like to join us, there will be more information about that next week, so I will tell you all about it. But the idea is it's going to be a fortnightly thing, because I think sometimes a weekly can be a bit much for people to commit to. And we're going to have a variety of different types of tangling. We might work on some projects over a longer time. We might do some stuff with colour. I've got all sorts of ideas, too many ideas buzzing around in my head. And then in the intervening weeks where there's not a live lesson, we will have prompts and challenges so that people can respond to kind of prompts in their own way, and we can see how people kind of do that. And I think that's going to be really fun. So that is coming next week. Well, it's opening next week, and the inaugural lesson will be the following week on the 30th of September. Anyway, I'm going to put another of these little frondy ones in here, I think. Just a little one that's going to poke out the end there behind that Toodles and the Pokeroot. I also will actually say, if you are not on my mailing list, then please let me know, or follow the link in your email, which will take you to a link, because you won't automatically be on the mailing list from doing this. You have opted in to receive emails about these lessons. So if you're not on the mailing list, please join, and you can listen to me waffling via a blog and an email. I send emails weekly on a Wednesday. And I've just been writing tomorrow's blog, which is all about community and how lovely it is that we've got this lovely Zentangle community from all over the world. I'm going to add another little Pokeroot, was just asking to pop in here. So there he goes. But I'm getting tiny tangling now, so I need to switch my tiny tangling brain off. And then I'm going to do another Zinger here. But yeah, like, feel free to add more or not, depending on what your preference is. As I said, this is a pretty full-on tile. And actually, it kind of, I always think that tiles tend to go through like I'm going to say like an ugly stage, where you just, I mean, I'm looking at this now and I think, goodness me, that's a lot of lines. There's a lot going on here, but when we add the shading, we can start to pull things forward and push things back and start to bring things to life, and it will not look quite so overwhelming when we get there. One more is going to fill this space, and then I'm going to call it a day, I think, with my tangling. There we go. Cool. That was a lot of lines. Right, I've capped my pen to stop myself being tempted to add any more. Oh no, actually, hang on a minute, I was going to add something more. Oh, sorry. I'm going to uncap my pen. And all I was going to add, actually, was just a couple of bits of line rating and things, just to kind of define a few bits a little bit more. And what I was going to add was just a little bit of weight to some of these Toodles. Just making these lines ever so slightly thicker in a couple of places, not the whole thing. And it actually kind of transforms it a little bit, I think. So I'm just kind of going over and adding a little bit of extra weight to a couple of these sections. So not too much. I'm doing a take off and land with this here. So taking off from the top here and then landing back here. And then a little bit more weight here. Just in a couple of places, nothing major. And I'm going to just add a little bit more. I'm going to kind of come back into those Mooka and just create a little bit more inky spaces in those corners. And you don't have to do this at all. It's entirely up to you. Just coming back into those Mooka and giving them a bit more of a bold kind of accent, I suppose. Okay. One more there. Right. And then I'm going to add a little bit of weight just to the outside of that Mooka there. And this one here. And I just think it's quite amazing actually how just a little bit of extra line weight can kind of transform things a little. And that will be emphasized even more so when we add the shading. Just a little bit of weighting. Okay, right, now I am actually going to cut my pen and leave it there. So hopefully everyone is up to date-ish with where we are. And for those of you who are not, please don't panic. As I said, the recording is available, so just you meet yourself where you're at, tangle along, don't get stressed because that defies the point. Just enjoy, and if you need a bit more time, the recording will be there for you to follow along at your leisure. So I'll start shading in here with my Festune pebbles. And I'm going to go, I've got a nice sharp pencil. I sharpened it just before I came online. What is that on there? There we go. So I'm going to just point my pencil in towards the outer edge of this. If you're new to Zentangle and you don't have a Zentangle pencil, this is just an HB pencil to the best of my knowledge. So you can use any HB pencil. You don't need to have a short one. However, it does help if you have a short one, because the way I like to shade is to try and keep my pencil quite horizontal to the paper, to the table, because the softer, if you press your graphite down as if you were writing, it presses the graphite right down into the fibers of the paper and it makes it harder to maneuver your pencil and your graphite around in order to create gradients of shade. And when we shade, which is step number 6 of the Zentangle method, we are creating depth and gradients of shade. And we want to make sure that we retain white space, which is, I feel like, maybe easier said than done on this tile, but we want to retain some highlights, because if you don't have highlights, then you just have grey and then you have no depth at all. So we want to place this graphite down and we use our tortillon to blend what we place. Your tortillon or your blending stump or whatever you're using, a Q-tip or a cotton bud if you don't have a tortillon, is just going to move the graphite that we place on the tile around. And I say this, it sounds obvious, but you'd be amazed at how many people, when I teach in-person classes, that I have going, but it's not working. I don't understand why this pencil's not working. And it's because it's not a pencil. It's a tortillon. So don't try and draw with this. You can use it to transfer a bit of loose graphite later, but we just use it to maneuver the graphite around. So I'm going to go around the edges of this space here, and I'm not going to be super precious about it, but if you go over your black areas, the black pen with a graphite pencil, it will reduce the black, sort of the depth of the black. So I'm trying to kind of just go in between those lines I've drawn, but I'm also not like being stressed about it. And I'm going to go around that little dot in the center, and then I'm going to do the same for all of these. So just pop a little bit of graphite around the edges. And I'm not doing what I normally do here, but I do like to try and point my graphite towards where I want to be the most precise. So pointing it in towards the edge. And I've not mentioned about turning my tile. Turning your tile is a lovely thing to do in Zentangle because it keeps your hand nice and relaxed. And that's kind of the whole point, is we want to stay as relaxed as possible. So there's no kind of, you don't have to maneuver your hand around to fit your tile. That's why one of the reasons why the format is so small, because you can turn your tile to respond to where you want to place things. So I've gone all around the outside edge within these pebbles, and I have gone around that center dot, and then I'm going to just move this graphite very gently and kind of go over it just to smudge the line kind of where it is, and gently. I mean, my tortoise's a little bit dirty, so it is kind of has some residual graphite on here already, but I'm just very gently softening those harsh lines that I've drawn with that pencil, and I'm making sure that I'm keeping a nice kind of graphite free zone in the center here, and that's just going to give some nice depth and kind of roundness to this. And this center section here I'm just softening as well, but without bringing it too far out. So literally just going over where I've placed it, take away the harshness of that line, and that is going to create a kind of illusion that this is disappearing away from you and this is disappearing away from you, whereas this highlight here is coming forward. And that was one of the reasons I like this tangle so much, because it really gives a nice kind of 3D effect, I think. So I'm just very gently softening that line, little circular motions with my tortillon going over what I've placed, and I'm not pulling it too far away. And softening that center, and then around the last one in the same way. So there are my, oh, I didn't do the middle bit. That's my Festune. I am also going to come back and just do a little bit more shading around, like in between them, but we'll save that for a minute. I think that, I mean, I just love this tangle. I just think that looks so cool. I just think it looks like a little kind of funky little pebbly discs. They look really cool. Right, so I'm going to now place my graphite on my Pokeroot and my Pokeleaf, and I'm going to just simply with this one just go into the little upside down smileys like so. You might have a different way that you like to shade this tangle. For example, I often quite like putting some either side of the stem and only putting a tiny bit at the top there, but I think sometimes when you've tangled really small, it's quite hard to be that specific about where things are going. So however you like to shade this tangle, then go for it. I'm also going to just pop a little bit around anywhere where these leaves or berries overlap each other, just to give a little bit of separation between them. I haven't got too many that are overlapping, but just a little bit. It's not a lot of graphite I'm adding to these at all. I'm just going to soften anywhere that I've placed that graphite. Oh, my cat's trying to get in the door again. He did this last week. Silly ginger boy. We'll see if he manages to break the door down. He did manage to push it open last week. And then just softening these bits here. Turning my tile, and just from now onwards being aware that there is graphite on this tile that may smudge if you are moving your hand across it. So just being mindful of that. So that's quite a subtle amount of shading, but I do have some residual graphite on the end of my tortillon here. So I'm just going to add another little smiley face to a couple of sections of these. Helpfully just going across a little bit more of a string line that I could see there, but this is just adding a little bit more depth and curvature, I suppose, to those little berries and leaves. So that's that one. Next up is Toodles. Now, you may have a way that you prefer to shade this. I'm going to go down one side of the little central stem and then just follow a little bit up these little curves. I'm going the same side. If you've added weight to the stems of your Toodles, then you can just go along with that same side. I think will work nicely. But if you feel like you want to shade this in a different way, or you have a preferred way of shading any of these tangles, then please do go ahead with that. The cat's made it into the building. He was always in the building, but he's made it into the room, and now he's looking at me indignantly like, why have you closed the door? His food is just over there, which is why he's tried to break in. But there is another way, and I'm not just starving the cat, don't worry. I'm just gently softening anything I've placed. Really, I try to keep my depending on the tangle, obviously, I try to keep my graphite quite close in to where I place it, because I want to retain as many highlights as possible. And it's easier to add it than it is to take it away. So you can always go back in later and add more, but I'm just gently taking any harsh edges away. So next up, let's do, oh, I've missed a Pokeroot. He was a late addition, I think. I'm going to just add those in now that we've moved up this tile a little. You can feel free to do this in any order that you wish. I'm just adding the curve and anywhere where things are tucking behind neighbours. Okay, so I'll do the Henna Drum now. So that's going to be just following in here right into where those texture lines flick out of the top. And what's really nice about that is that this central kind of band is going to really stand out. We're going to keep the graphite out of it, but with the dark ink here and then the graphite here, it's going to give that band a real kind of glowy feel. So I'm going to just point my tortillon in towards that where I want to be precise, because I want to pull the graphite away from there. I don't want to pull it in towards that band. And just softening that. Little circles. The bigger your space, the more you can kind of pull that graphite away to create more of a gradient. And then with the Mooka, I find Mooka quite simple to shade. I'm going to just add a line of graphite there where it disappears behind the rest of this kind of garden that we've grown. And I am also going to, I'm going to come back in with my residual graphite to do my little smiley curves. Like so. And then come back in and just add these little, if you want to add pencil or graphite, then you can by all means just add a little smiley face and then smudge that. But I tend to find that I end up with enough graphite just to use what's on there to add an idea of a subtle kind of curve. And you'll notice that I'm placing all these curves. I've just sort of done that without thinking. In Zentangle, if you're new to Zentangle, we don't really consider a light source. So we don't worry about whether the shade's in the right place, or if the light's coming from here, so the shadow should be here. It's not like we're doing a still life of a bowl of fruit where you would be very technical about thinking about that. I don't really consider it all that much. I suppose I do think there's more, like if this is growing, then perhaps the sun would be coming down from here, so the shadow would be on the underside of these. So here it's I'm kind of putting it around this side, but you can do whatever feels right to you with your tile. Just adding those little curves just gives it a little bit more of a depth. It's quite subtle. With this Zen-splosion folds, I'm going to shade down either side of each of these kind of little sections. The textured ones, but also the not textured ones. And this is going to really make this come to life, I think. And this is an interesting one because this is a larger white space here. You can play a little bit more with bringing that graphite to more of a subtle kind of finish. So you can spread that graphite a little bit more. So always go over what you've placed first with your tortillon, just to kind of fix it down into the paper, and then you can start to lift the pressure of your tortillon and just gently move it away a little bit further. But making sure that you do retain, because you're coming from both sides here, so make sure that you retain a little bit of white. So at the moment, I'm not really thinking about where all these different elements are overlapping necessarily. I did a little bit with the Pokeroot, but I'm going to come back in a second and give that a little bit, go again, go do a second part of graphite, I suppose, to add a little bit more. I'm kind of just treating all these tangles as individuals at the moment before I start to think about their relationship to each other. Let's do this other one here. I'm actually not going to add any shade to this lovely floaty tangle by Maria Tovar because I think it's quite nice just as it is, and it doesn't really require shading, I don't think. But if you would like to add some, then by all means do. There we go. I feel like we are nearly there with this. I've just used my residual graphite just to fill in this space down here, which I felt would be the end of this hiding. And actually you can always go in and add more, but I think, as I said, we'll come back to that in a second. And then finally, I'm going to add, well, finally on the first pass at least, I'm going to add a little bit of graphite onto the edges of my zinger. So I'm going to choose one side of each of them. And then it's going to help to create this real curvature. So just softening that there. And again, this is a favourite of mine. And I just think it's really simple, but it really adds something kind of, it's a little bit whimsical. There we go. Okay. I'm done with my first pass. And if you're happy with that, then by all means, leave it there. You don't need to go back in with any more if you don't want to. You might like to pick up your pen and just restate a few lines. I might still do that in a minute. I'm going to just go in again and now just add a few chunks of graphite around what I perceive to be different sections to kind of separate things out a little bit more. So I'm going to come around the edge of my Festune pebbles or pepper or whatever they are in the middle. So they're all going to stand away from each other. And at this point, some of the, the highlights that I was preserving are going to get lost, but that's okay in the pursuit of layering. I don't mind that. That's already made that pop out a lot more. I'm going to now come around the edge of this on this side and go nice and deep with some graphite. I do like to use a lot of graphite. I like shading. And when I first started, I hated it. So just meet yourself, as I said, meet yourself where you're at, and don't, if you don't want to add it, then don't. You can start to experiment a little bit more as you become more confident. So now I've gone around the outside of this, these pebbles, and now I'm going to just pull some of that graphite into my Pokeroot. And this is kind of by default darkening these in between sections, which are, behind everything. So just softening all the way around that. And that's lifted those right away from the Pokeroot. And now I'm going to go around the outside of my Pokeroot and add a little line of graphite around the edges here. And this is dropping these Toodles behind those. Quite a fine line, but like lots of graphite within that fine line. Oh, I've gone around that one. I meant to come around here. So I'm coming around this Pokeroot here and this leaf. And then I'm going to come a little bit around the bottom there as well. And actually just a little bit around there also. And I'm going to point my tortillon in this way and then soften this around here. So again, I'm sort of ignoring everything that's beyond this. And it's going to go right into some of the Toodles. But what it's going to do, and because I'm not pulling it out very far, I'm just softening that line. And you can see that's already started to make those Pokeroot dance a little bit more and pop them out a little bit from their previous position. It's just made them pop out a little bit more, I think. And then I'm going to do the same with the Toodles. So I'm going to come around the edges of those. And when I've done the Pokeroot, I've obviously ignored these ones that are up here, the ones that I kind of added in later. But this is now adding plenty of graphite into this bottom section where this Zen-splosion disappears behind everything. So all of this is kind of becoming part of the background. And I think you can kind of see, hopefully you can see what I mean when I said that I've kind of, it felt really busy and a bit messy. But adding the shading kind of starts to help your brain know what to look at and how to process the different layers that you have. So I'm just going to go in and shade around the edges of those Toodles. All around the edge. And this is going to be quite dark in this section where this Mooka emerges from. Like so. And that's just making that pop out a little bit more. And I think the final thing I'm going to do is just add, and probably not to all of them, but just to a couple of these Mooka. I'm going to come right up the side there. And here. And maybe underneath. I am sort of winging it at this point. I don't really know how it's going to feel with the additional Mooka stuff, but you know, we'll find out. So sometimes I'm just talking out loud and forget that you're all here listening to me. So apologies for my waffling. Yeah, so this is just adding a little bit more oomph to this upper section and just kind of playing with the layers and dropping things behind, and some things are popping out forwards. I actually feel like I'm going to put some on this side of this Mooka as well. Felt like it was asking me to. There we go. But I feel pretty happy with this now. Hopefully you are also feeling happy with your tile, and hopefully not too overwhelmed by the quantity of lines and tangles that we've played with today. But there you go. Pretty happy with that. So the final couple of steps of the Zentangle method are to, for number 7, to initial and sign our work. So I will invite you to add your chop if you are finished. My chop is like my little Ivy's Corner logo. So it's a little sort of C and an I. So your chop is just your a little mark that is smaller than, or it could just be your initials, but smaller than your signature, so that you can kind of pop it onto your tile. And if you, a big signature is quite distracting if you've got a little tile. So you can write that there. If you've been writing your tiles, your tangles on the back, and hopefully you still have space to turn it over and sign your tile as well, because we always, you know, you have created this beautiful piece of art, so you should claim it by initialing it and signing it. And you might like to put the date, which is the 16th of September or September the 16th, depending on which side of the Atlantic you are. And you might like to write, this is a lesson with Becky from Ivy's Corner. But there we go. And the final step, as ever, is just to return to our appreciation once more and just take a little moment to hold your tile up and see what you have created, and appreciate yourself, because you have put lots of hard work into this, and hopefully you are pleased with your results. And yes, I appreciate everyone for coming here and tangling with me. Thank you. People who've had to disappear, but thank you. Well, they can't hear me, but thank you very much if you watched back the recording. And thank you to all of you. Thank you so much. I don't know if anyone would like to wave their tile at the camera. Bear in mind that you will be on YouTube if you do. But if you don't mind that. Tony, hello Tony. Let me spot. Oh my goodness. Oh, we're starting with a very lovely one here. Let me replace the spotlight and have a look at you.
Wow.
Look at that. That's incredible. Wow. And you've inked in all the background, have you? Yeah, gorgeous. That is wonderful. I love the red as well. And your Festune, I'm going to keep calling it Festune, but I really love those. They really stand out at the bottom there. That's fabulous. Oh, thank you so much. Let me come back to gallery and I will spotlight another one that's being waved at me. Leslie, let me replace you, the spotlight onto you, and we'll have a look at what you've created. Oh, wow. Look at that. That's beautiful. Oh, do you know, I really love how your henna drum is like continuing behind your Mooka in that center point there. The center one. That's really lovely. And some really lovely deep shading around your Toodles as well. And a little bee. Oh, I love him. He's great. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. Thumbs up. Let me take you off of spotlight and we'll go to Lisa. There you are, Lisa.
Hiya.
Hello. Wow, look at that. That's gorgeous.
That was so much fun tonight. Thank you.
Oh, good. Oh, I'm so pleased. When I put these together, I never know what people are going to think, but I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And I love your henna drum with the little highlight in the middle. As I was doing it, I thought, oh, shall I leave a highlight? And I thought, no, I did it. And then it was yeah, and you've inked in all those spaces in between as well. That's fab. I love that. Really, really nice.
Thank you.
Gorgeous. Right, who else is waving at me? Anybody else would like to share? Suzanne, let me replace this.
I actually just did two. I did one in pencil and one in ink.
Oh, wow. You are a speedy tangler. I thought I was fast. That's amazing. Oh, do you know, I really love that in pencil. Is that the one on my
This one?
Yeah, that's gorgeous. It looks really like subtle and like, yeah, that's beautiful.
I'm new into this, so I'm just really learning how to do shading.
Oh,
I started it in ink and I didn't like it, so I went back to pencil.
Oh, no, it's beautiful. I love it's really subtle. It's really, really nice. But you know, there's no such thing as doing it wrong. And I think your pen tile looks gorgeous. And if you go through and shade that, you might be surprised at how much it kind of transforms. I often find when I looked at this before, I was like, oh, I don't know. And then yeah, really lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was great. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to pop you over to Tracy here, who's waving her tile at me. Look at that. Oh, beautiful. I really love your ribbon. That is stunning. Really, really nice. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Really beautiful ribbon. I love how it goes all wibbly at the end there. That's really lovely. Oh, thank you so much, everyone. Let me bring myself back to speaker to save anyone having to oh, where am I? There we are. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. Oh, the bee is your chop, Leslie. That's gorgeous. I love it. Yeah. Thank you so much again, everyone. I've had a really lovely time. And look at that, almost bang on an hour and a half, which is what I was aiming for. So I must be doing something right with my timing. If you haven't shared your time with me now, then please do pop me a message on email, or you can tag me on Instagram, etc. But yeah, thank you so much to everyone for joining me. There's been lots of you on this call today, and just really appreciate all of you. Thank you. I'm going to go and have a sit down and a cup of tea and chill out a bit, and then get an early night because, as I said, I was up at 4:30, so I think I need an early night tonight. But yeah, hopefully I will see lots of you again next week. If you haven't signed up for that yet, then please do on the same link that you would have signed up for this one. Even if you can't attend live, if you sign up to the link, then you will get your link through the recording afterwards. But yes. Oh, Leslie says Donald Trump has flew over your house as we were starting. Oh goodness, that's an exciting turn of events. Anyway, thank you so much, everyone, and hopefully I will see you next week, if not another time. But yeah, take care, and I'll speak to you soon.